Alright, so we're going to do a full guide to dealing with negative people. This is something that a few people have requested, and I already was thinking about making it. So in this video, we're going to be doing a full guide just to what is a negative person, why you're actually surrounded by negative people without realizing it, what kind of behavior is negative behavior, and dealing with these kinds of people so that you can live a better life, be happier, and not let them hold you back. I don't know I wasn't participating in this photo. This is a few of my friends from last year. I've crossed out the faces of these guys because they redeemed themselves, kind of. They weren't that bad. But yeah, they were shaving each other's head in the car park. They were shaving each other's heads in a car park once. These were the kind of people that were in my friend group, and they were just not good people to be around. And then there's a photo of me just on my own working out in the gym. Look at that fucking bicep, huge. So that's what happens to you when you stop hanging around with people like that. You actually start to improve your life. But first of all, we need to actually address what are negative people, because if in your friend group right now, and this is an extremely common one, you find that your friends are being really rude to you, they're tearing you down, they're not helping you actually improve yourself when you do things like go to the gym or anything like that, they make fun of you and they try and stop you from doing that, this video is 100% for you. And honestly, this video is 100% for everyone, because everybody is going to deal with negative people. So these are a few of the things we're going to talk about in this video. Guys, if you're interested in checking out my ebook, it's in the description below. It's the best thing you could possibly read if you're 18 to 25 or even a bit younger or older and you're looking to improve your life. Also, make sure you hit the subscribe button and check out my main channel. I've got that linked in the description as well. But let's go. So first of all, what actually are negative people? Let's just put a definition to them before we go any further. A negative person is someone who makes you feel worse to make themselves feel better. You could call them energy vampires. You can call them anything you want. I just call them negative people. And an example of this would be a friend who often puts you down for seemingly no reason. And as soon as I said that someone popped into your brain immediately. That person is probably a negative person, but we'll continue with the video for now. The opposite of this is, of course, a positive person, someone who makes you feel better, and as a result, they also do. So that seems pretty cut and dry. Why am I making this video? Well, the reason I'm making this video, and not just a video, but a full guide, is because a lot of people, and I don't even know, probably more than 90% of people are very negative, very, very negative, especially covertly in friend groups. The word covert, if you don't know, it just means it's not obvious. They can't come up to you and say they hate you. They have to use like jokes and sarcasm, and they try and put you down behind the scenes. But that is their goal. It's to make you feel worse. And I think this is more common than ever before because people have lower self-esteem, and for a bunch of reasons we will get into in a second. But essentially, negative people will try and keep you at the level you're at now. If you have a group full of negative people, a friend group full of people like this, what they'll do is they'll make jokes, they'll do a bunch of different things, but they're actually trying to make you feel bad to keep you at the level you're at now. They don't want to see you improve, and they behave in seemingly strange ways. So if you found yourself, really frustrated, maybe even at like the point of tears in your own personal time because your friends are just trash, like they kick you out of like a bunch of group chats and they think it's funny and it's just not funny at all, you'll be puzzling this and trying to justify it to yourself logically, and you'll be like, this just doesn't make any sense at all. They're just behaving strangely. This is the video for you, because I was exactly like that and I now perfectly understand why they behave that way. So part one, understanding negative people. First of all, just why? Why do negative people behave the way they do so that it's not strange anymore? The simple answer is because they have low self-esteem, and that's probably not the answer you were looking for. You probably wanted a more complicated, sophisticated answer, and I'm going to give you that in a second. But effectively, they have low self-esteem. If you don't know what self-esteem is, or you've only got a vague idea, it's basically how much you like yourself. It's how much you value yourself. If you have high self-esteem, that's good. You like yourself, you value yourself, you're confident, you can do things, you can work on stuff. If you have low self-esteem, which most people do, you don't like yourself. That doesn't inherently mean you're a negative person if you have low self-esteem, which we'll talk about in a second, but that is the reason they behave like this. The friends that are doing this will always have low self-esteem. You won't find a high self-esteem friend that behaves like this. So when it comes to dealing with negative people, I've come up with 3 laws, and I'm going to share with you law 1 because this is going to really, really help you understand why your friends tear you down, why people behave like this. Law 1 is called the 2 strings. It's actually based on a story my dad told me. Basically, once upon a time, there were 2 strings, a little string and a big string. The big string was really popular and it was really cool. The little string wasn't cool, it wasn't popular, and it didn't have very high self-esteem. The little string wanted to really wanted to be cool like the big string. It wanted to be big. And so it had 2 choices. It could either be like the big string and be a better person, and it would grow and become the big string as well. Or it could cut the big string in half to try and make itself look better. Even though it wasn't any better, it would just try and, take everyone down a level just to look better. The reason I tell you that story is because your friends that are negative people that are doing these things to you, or maybe it's not a friend, it could be a boss, a coworker, anything like that. They are being the little string who decides to cut the big string in half. That is their strategy. They're not actually growing themselves. They are cutting other people down to try and make themselves look better. And again, not everyone with low self-esteem behaves like this. If you imagine the little string is the personification of low self-esteem, plenty of people with low self-esteem pick the first option, which is to grow. And that's great. That's the option you should pick if you have low self-esteem. But unfortunately, of all of the people that have low self-esteem, I think most of them decide to be the second, they decide to make the second decision. They decide to cut other people down. And yeah, it's really just not good. I think I'm talking about, let me go back, sorry. But yeah, so you might be asking yourself, why do people cut other people down? Why can't they just grow as people? And the answer is because everyone has a different coping mechanism. Everybody likes to have some kind of control. You can't really exist as a person without any agency or control at all. And it goes to what I call the self-image quadrant. So I've made a quadrant on this page, and you might be freaking out about how complicated this is. It's really not. You can screenshot this if you want. Why is this not moving? But once you understand this, everything gets so much simpler. So basically, there are people with low self-esteem. This is the self-esteem section. So high, low. Of the people with low self-esteem, the small strings, they fall into two categories, destructive and productive. If you think about the small string, the one who decides to grow and be a bigger string, that would be in productive because he's actually growing to become a better person. If you think about the small string that cuts someone in half, that would be in destructive. As in, destructive just means they're not actually doing anything to better themselves as a person, they're just destroying things. Of the destructive side of the little string, the low self-esteem, there are kind of two categories. When we're talking about negative people, we're generally talking about crabs. If you don't know why I've called it a crab, basically if you put crabs in a bucket and one of them tries to climb out, the other crabs will yank it back in. That's basically what probably a lot of your friends are like. They try and tear you down. And then of course, you can be also the self-sabotager. So instead of, you've got low self-esteem, you're not really doing anything to improve yourself, but you're also not really hurting anyone. You're a people pleaser. You're probably a bit of a pushover and you tear yourself down. That's also not good, but for the most part in this video, we're focusing on crabs. We're focusing on people that are actually trying to make you a worse person. So anything in this quadrant here is the little string cutting other people in half or cutting himself in half. It's just not behavior you want to be like. You want to be in this section so that you can eventually move to this section. If you're watching this kind of content, you're probably in this section here, which is you maybe don't have very high self-esteem, but you are being productive, which is great. As long as you're on the productive side, that's good, because if you're on the productive side, you will eventually end up in the high self-esteem side. So this is you right now, maybe not the highest self-esteem, but you're working on yourself. You've got hope for the future. Your self-esteem's rising. Fantastic. That's good. Eventually you'll end up in this section here. I would put myself in this section here because I've done a lot of self-work. This is the best section to be in. It's the high achiever section. So you're in the high self-esteem section. You actually do like yourself. You don't really give a shit what anyone says. Like, do you really think, hold on. Do you really think someone who puts this at the start of a video gives a shit what anyone says? The only reason I cross those people out is because I respect them more now. I don't give a shit what either of these people say. I don't give a shit what anyone says that I put a photo here. I don't care. So effectively, wow, this laptop's garbage. I need to get a new laptop. But effectively, when you're in this section here, high self-esteem, but you're also productive, that's fantastic. You have high self-confidence, you're bringing other people up too, you're a role model, and you're always improving yourself. That's the section to be like. This fourth section here is kind of a bit of a weird one, and it's not really one you need to worry about. It's kind of like the Conor McGregor type, like once you've achieved high self-esteem and success, but you become destructive, like you went on a bit of a, I don't watch the UFC that much, but I think Conor McGregor and maybe a few other fighters, he won a lot of fights and he started drinking and partying and he lost it. So he still had high self-esteem, but he was behaving in a destructive way. He got arrogant, he lacked a student mindset, people can get complacent, and it's very short-lived because if you're in this section here, you're going down effectively. Anyone who's in the destructive side is going down, anyone in the productive side is going up. So you don't really need to worry about this one. It's kind of a weird one to be in that not many people are in, but they will end up down here because they're effectively sabotaging themselves. It's only a matter of time before their self-esteem goes down because they lose whatever achievement they have. But yeah, that is basically the quadrant. One other thing I will address real quick because it's something, oh my God. All right, I just need to move this out of the way for God's sake. This isn't moving. There we go. I managed to move it. That was really annoying. One thing a lot of people don't understand is the difference between ego and self-esteem. Ego is basically your view of your capability and entitlement. So honestly, if you're in this section, you also probably have a big ego. Ego is very dependent on like it's very context specific. So like someone with high self-esteem generally just has high self-esteem across the board. Someone with a big ego, it's probably specific to a single thing. So maybe you have a big ego on the sporting field. Maybe you have a big ego I've seen like kids when I went to school have a big ego in like math competitions. So like ego is very, very subject specific, although there are people that just have a huge ego across the board as well. That's your view of your capability and your entitlement effectively. It's different from self-esteem. And I've already explained what destructive versus productive is. Destructive means you're tearing yourself or other people down, you're going down. Productive is just productive behavior and you're growing. The reason the self-image quadrant is important is because most people with low self-esteem fall into this destructive side, and those are your friends, the crabs, the self-sabotagers, that kind of thing. So why is that important to understand? Well, now you kind of understand a little bit about why they behave the way they do. Most of your friends they have low self-esteem, they don't actually believe in themselves, and so they try and gain some kind of satisfaction from tearing you down. The question you probably have now is why? Why do they choose to tear me down? Why do they target me more than each other or other people? Well, that actually leads us to law 2. So this is probably the strangest part of the video, because I just didn't understand for the longest time why my friends, the people who are supposed to be nice to me, a lot of them would just, not all of them, but a lot of them would just, they would make jokes in air quotes, like they wouldn't be jokes. And I'm by the way, I'm all for offensive jokes. I'm all for insulting each other and giving each other shit. You might not understand if you're a girl, but for a guy, that's like very normal. Men should do that. But what they shouldn't do is deliberately try and make other people feel bad. And I've always been a pretty good judge of character. I can tell when you're telling a joke and you're trying to make someone feel bad, like you've got a little smile on your face, like you want someone to feel bad. It would make you please. You'd giggle your ass off later knowing that you made someone feel bad. That isn't the kind of person you want to be friends with. So I was just like, why? What have I done to deserve this? And I eventually came to law 2, the law of proximity, and this explained everything. I understood exactly why my friends would target me, and they would make jokes and just be rude when I'd done really nothing at all to deserve it. So effectively, the law of proximity goes like this. There are 2 types of people, right? There's productive people and destructive people. We already understand that. If you're a productive person, what is your weakness? Like, how can you be a weaker person? Well, the only way as a productive person to be a weaker person is to get like complacent. Like it's to give in to like, oh, you start eating junk food, you stop going to the gym, that kind of thing. It's to maybe get your feelings hurt, to lower your self-esteem so you don't believe in yourself anymore. That's kind of the weakness for people like us, really, to stop believing in ourselves and to do bad habits. What is the weakness for destructive people? They're already doing the bad habits. So like, eating a bit more junk food is obviously going to make them worse, but it's not really a weakness. They're already doing those bad things. Though, what you need to understand is these people here have a completely different weakness. Their weakness is actually complacency. If you think about it, imagine for a second you're a destructive person, you're a little degenerate crab who's rude to people to try and make yourself feel better, you don't do any good habits. Think about what your weakness is for a second. Imagine you see someone who's got a way better physique than you, or is way smarter than you, or way more confident than you, or is with the, if you're a guy, maybe he's with the girl that you like. That is what makes these people angry. Comparison and accountability. When they see someone who has the thing that they want, that is their weakness. That makes them feel bad. We feel bad when we, scroll on our phones in the morning, or we miss a workout, or someone disrespects us. That's what makes us feel bad. What makes them feel bad is comparison or accountability. When they see someone improving when they're not, that makes them feel really bad because they don't believe in themselves. And so, that is exactly why they target you. When they are being rude to you, when they are making jokes, when they are trying to lower your self-esteem, or when they call you, they just do dumb shit. Like they'll call you gay for going to the gym. Like just silly things like that. When they do something like that, that is them trying to make you weak. They know your weakness. They understand your weakness is not believing in yourself, because that's exactly what they do. They understand your weakness is skipping workouts and, not being a man of your word or a woman of your word, or doing bad habits. They are actively trying to make you do your weakness. The difference between you and them is that they have to try and make you do your weakness. You are their weakness. That's the difference. The best they can do is try and tell you, be rude to you so you don't believe in yourself. You literally are their weakness. Being around you, it's not your fault. You're doing the right thing. But productive people are the weakness of destructive people. When they see you going to the gym, minding your own business, when they see you improving yourself, you literally are their kryptonite. By being around you, it's kind of like them insulting you. You know the feeling you get when they're being rude to you and disrespecting you? That is exactly the feeling they get when you're just being yourself, being a good person. That is why they target you. Once I understood this, everything made sense, and I'll tell you a story later in the video. It's going to make you laugh because I don't think I've told it. I think I've told it one time on YouTube, but I didn't do it justice. I'm going to tell you the funniest shit you've ever heard that relates to this law in a second. But basically, that is why they target you. They target you because you are their weakness personified. You being around them and being a good person makes them feel like shit, and so they lash out emotionally to try and make you a worse person. I really hope that sinks in because it's so important. Let's address some negative behavior real quick, and then we will move on to the next part of this video and I'll tell you that story. All right. Remember, these people are acting emotionally, not logically. They are not logical people. And a mistake I've made a lot of the time is trying to be logical with them and be like, you know, why are you doing this? They're not logical. They're not emotional. If they were logical, they'd look you in the eye and tell you, I don't like the fact that you're a productive person and I'm a destructive person and I don't believe in myself and you do. And seeing you do these things makes me feel sad. And so I'm going to make you feel sad to make myself feel better. That would be them being logical. They're never going to do that because they're not logical people. They're reacting emotionally. They don't even realize why. And they're trying to make you feel worse so they feel better. And that also means they have to do it covertly. I already mentioned that word. They can't just be open to you. They're going to make jokes that are actually putting you down and that kind of thing. Crabs are also often friends. If you think about the crabs in the bucket, they're all in the bucket together, but they're not actually helping each other. If someone's just a straight up dick to you, like they're openly like they hate you, you just wouldn't hang out with them. Like most of the worst people when you're in like a working environment or if you're still in high school, the worst people often are your friends because they're not being overt about it. You can't just report them. You can't just like avoid them because they're in your friend group and they try and disguise the fact that they're a piece of shit. Also, I'll address a joke versus a joke. I already kind of mentioned before, but I love like being mean to each other, like as guys. Like, it's funny. You should be being mean to each other. I have friends that like treat me like absolute shit and I don't mind it because it's funny. Like, we all get along. They don't actually want to see me feel bad. They're great guys and I'm nice to them as well, but we give each other shit because it's funny, right? Friends should do that. The difference is that a joke is different from a joke, in air quotes. What a lot of guys will do, maybe, I think girls do this too, but it's a bit different where they're like, they're way more covert than guys. But with guys, a lot of the time, they will insult you, like they'll make a joke about your body, or they'll call you gay, or they'll kick you out of a group chat as a joke and not add you back for like an hour when everyone else is organizing something and you're not allowed. Just things like that. I could give you a bunch of other examples and I probably will on the next slide. But things like that where their intention isn't actually to be funny. When I'm around good guys, their intention is to be funny. When I like publish a video on something and they tell me that Pride Month's over, it's pretty rude. But when they say something like that trying to be funny because they've just called my video gay, like, you know, it's offensive, but it's a joke. I find that funny because their intention is to be funny. They're not being bad people. The problem is when the intention is actually to make someone feel worse. And often it can be the exact same joke, but the intention is to make someone feel worse. That often carries through, and that makes you feel like it makes you feel unhappy. That is the kind of stuff that's not acceptable, and that's what's negative behavior, not this. So that's negative behavior down. Now you understand law one, you understand the difference between the big string and the little string, how some people are productive and destructive, and you also understand why they target you. It's no longer very strange. It's no longer like, oh, these people are just weird. I don't really understand why they're going after me. I haven't done anything wrong. You haven't done anything wrong, but now you understand why they behave like that. Now we're going to talk about how you can deal with these people, how you can, not let them get to you, and how you can still be a productive person without falling into bad habits or losing your self-belief, etc. But guys, if you're watching to this point, definitely hit the subscribe button. Check out my ebook in the description if you want to become a better person. If you like this kind of content, that ebook is like 10 times better than anything you've ever seen before on YouTube or anything like that. So definitely check it out. I've also got my Instagram linked below. If you're having problems with someone and you're watching to this point, you can 100% add me and message me and I'll actually give you a hand. I'll even jump on call with you if you want and help walk you through stuff. So yeah, and I've got my main channel too. But guys, let's move on with the video. Part 2, dealing with negative people. I'm going to get a drink of water. All right, we're back. My laptop definitely didn't die, but that's okay. So part 2, dealing with negative people. The first thing you need to do, and I understand this is easier said than done, but it's to stop taking them seriously. So basically, we've already established that they're not logical, they're emotional. Their intention is to make you feel worse because they're destructive and they don't like themselves, and they don't care about you so much. They're trying to get you to feel bad to make themselves feel better. So the reason they are actually making you feel bad is because you take them seriously. You actually place value on what they say. And I'll explain what I mean. So effectively, we already talked about law 2, which is the law of proximity. Your weakness that they understand is the fact that your weakness as a person who's productive is becoming complacent, it's not believing in yourself, it's doing bad habits, etc. The only way they are actually able to activate this weakness is with their words, and their words only work because you place value on them. I want you to imagine for a second that literally nothing they say impacts you in any way, almost like they're on mute, like you don't even hear the words they say. Obviously, they can't even get to your weakness because you can't even hear them, let alone let their words affect you. So basically, the solution is to no longer place any value on their words. And I'm going to tell you that story I mentioned earlier, and then we'll talk about how you can start not taking them seriously. So this is a story about, he's not really my friend. He's not a terrible person, but it was a guy named Ashton. I think this was a few years ago. I was in grade 11, which is like, if you're American, that's like junior year. So I was like near the end of high school. Basically, I was sitting in class with him and another friend who he wasn't as bad, but he was all right, the other guy. And basically what this guy Ashton would do was he would constantly, like multiple times a week, if not a day, would constantly annoy me. He'd do basically the things that a crab would do that we mentioned before. He was very much in this section here. In fact, if you asked any of my other friends, even friends who don't understand this, they would agree if you showed them this, that he was definitely in there. So at the time, I didn't understand why he behaved the way he did, but basically what happened this one time in high school kind of changed how I viewed the situation a little bit, because it showed me how bizarre and strange the behavior from these people is until you understand it. So we were sitting in class. We were just working. We all had our laptops out, but nobody was actually doing anything yet because we were like waiting for the teacher to come back or something like that. And he pointed out my lock screen of my laptop, which I'm not making any of this up. It's going to sound strange, but this genuinely happened. The lock screen of my laptop was a picture of, I think it was a picture of Batman or something, like just a normal wallpaper. And he started giving me a hard time for that as my wallpaper, saying like, I think I'm like arrogant, I think I'm good, I think I'm Batman. Like it's just silliness. Like he was very, very emotionally immature. And obviously I was just like, what is wrong with you? I can admit my mistake. He got to me emotionally on that day. Like I was kind of annoyed that he was saying this, like, what are you doing? Like I haven't done anything wrong. And we went back and forth a little bit. The third guy was kind of just like laughing a little bit, like not really participating. He didn't really have much to do with it. And then I straight up said to Ashton, the guy that was giving me a hard time, I was just like, what did I do? Like, why are you giving me a hard time? This is kind of just annoying. And he said, I said to him, like, why are you starting this? And he said, no, you started it because you had that lock screen. And I just froze for a moment. And I remember thinking about it then, and I kept thinking about it because that was the last subject of the day. I kept thinking about it that afternoon. I was like, what the fuck is wrong with him? Like, that doesn't make any sense. He said to me, I started it because I had that lock screen. It was literally just a wallpaper from a Batman movie. And I thought about that and how illogical it was until I eventually realized what I'm teaching you now, which is that they don't care about logic or fairness. They only care about law 2. That is the only thing they care about. They see you as the instigator because you have made them feel bad. Remember, even though he had started it with me, right, he didn't actually view it as him. Nobody views themselves as the instigator. Have you realized that? Nobody actually, when there's any kind of conflict, it's always the other person did something first. Nobody views themselves as the one who started it. So even if we can logically unpack that situation and go, okay, it sounds like I'm leaving out information. I'm actually not. That's genuinely what happened. Plus, there's obviously the backstory and the future story of, he just did this kind of thing all the time. This was just a particularly, memorable example for me because it was so bizarre. The fact that he did that, wasn't because he viewed himself as the instigator. He actually viewed me as the instigator because of law 2, because of the proximity law, because I made him feel uncomfortable by being in this quadrant, by being the high achiever with high self-esteem, because that is his weakness, remember? The weakness of destructive people is accountability. Because I made him feel his weakness just by being me, even though I hadn't really done anything wrong. That made me that made him feel like I was the instigator, and so of course he retaliated, which we know is bullshit, but that's just the way they think. So they don't care about logical fairness. So what do you actually do when, and I've got other stories like that, it was absolutely ridiculous. Like, he was giving me a hard time over that and smiling, and he genuinely thought that that was the reason he gave me. Side note, before I move on, if you ever, obviously, I don't recommend trying to optimize with people to get them to stop because they don't care. But you can do this. I give you permission to do this one time if you want, just to see this for yourself. The next time a friend is giving you a hard time, and don't do this every time because it doesn't work. It's just, I want you to do it once to understand what I understand. The next time a friend is giving you a hard time, they're being a crab, they're being a dick, I want you to look them in the eye and say, why are you doing something? Why are you doing this? I didn't do anything wrong. Why are you starting this? Say those exact words, or more or less those exact words. But the most important thing is saying, why are you starting this? And then just shut up and listen for a second. Listen to what they actually say. They can't logically look you in the eye and say, I'm starting this because you're in the top right quadrant and you make me feel uncomfortable because you're better than me and I have low self-esteem. They can't say that. So whenever they say something, they have to try and make up some logical bullshit that actually makes sense. And what generally happens is they make up something ridiculous, like the thing he did with the lock screen, because they can't actually say the truth. They have to make up something logical because they're not being logical. So do this and you'll see that whatever the situation is, they'll make up some nonsense that doesn't make any sense, and you'll be like, okay, Ethan was right. That's exactly how they behave. So the way to stop taking them seriously and to stop letting them affect you is you need to stop optimizing to get them to stop. So what you probably spent a lot of time thinking about, which I also spent a lot of time thinking about, was what can I do? What can I change about my own behavior to get them to stop? We've been taught that a lot in school, that if we want someone to change their behavior, we have to change our behavior. That's actually not entirely true. If we want to change our lives, we need to change our behavior. We don't change our behavior to change somebody else's behavior. We change our behavior to change our lives. So what you're actually going to do is you're going to change your behavior, not to optimize to get them to stop. You're not changing your behavior to get them to stop. You're going to change your behavior so that you no longer care what they think. That is what you should do. You should be focusing on yourself. You should be doing internal work. So what I used to do was whenever something like this happened, especially if it was something that was particularly bad, like I remember one time, another time this guy was involved and a few other guys, including one of the guys I crossed out at the start of the video who's redeemed himself in my opinion, is they were all just absolutely shitting on me in a group chat, like saying things like kill yourself, spamming emojis and stuff. And again, don't get me wrong, I like having like boys saying rude things to each other. It's funny, but it was like they were just hammering me with it again. There was no intention of being funny. And one of the guys that was involved, I told him like, what you're saying isn't funny. And even though I should have just, ignored him, but he said he literally messaged me back and said, not all jokes are supposed to be funny. I'm not making that up. I've told that story before, and I think everyone who commented on the video was like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And it is. I have actually heard dumber things, but yeah, it was pretty dumb. And so that was another time where I realized this even more, that these people aren't logical. Anyway, the point was I was optimizing to try and get them to stop. I actually thought about that and I was like, what can I do to get them to stop? And what I realized after, I think I watched a video on this, is the third and final law, which is what I call the dopamine law. So what happens now, when they say something rude to you, you get affected, your dopamine levels go down, you don't like it effectively. What you need to do is you need to make the conscious decision to attach dopamine to them when they're rude to you. Here's what you need to realize, right? Imagine for a second someone in this quadrant up here, high self-esteem, high achiever, maybe they're one of the boys, they're like a good friend, says something nice to you. Because they're a positive person and they say something nice to you, that's good. That's a good thing, right? If a person who is, because it's a double positive, it's a positive times a positive person says something positive, and so you can be like, okay, that's good. What you need to understand is that when a negative person, like a crab, says something negative to you, they're actually trying to tear you down, that's a double negative. A negative times a negative is a positive thing. The only reason this person is being rude to you is because you activated their weakness. Remember, go back in time. Remember what I said about the weaknesses. If you're in the destructive category, your weakness is accountability, comparison to someone better than you, and feelings of low self-esteem because somebody appears to be better than you. Even though they haven't done anything, they're just in proximity to you. The only reason someone like this is ever rude to you, ever, under any circumstances, is because you have activated their weakness. That's why they're not really rude to each other. If you've ever noticed, some of these crabs, when they hang out with each other, sure that, they're not great people, so then maybe they are still rude to each other sometimes, but they're generally not really rude to each other. They sort of team up on you. And the reason for that is because they don't activate each other's weaknesses. Think about that. Is one of those people actually going to make the other one intimidated? No, because they're in the same category. None of them are impressive. They're lazy. They look like shit. They don't go to the gym. They're not productive people. They don't talk to the opposite sex. They're just complete losers. Of course they don't activate each other's weaknesses because they're both in the same shitty category. So what you need to understand is every single time somebody in this category says something mean to you, that isn't them being mean. I want you to rewire how you think about that. That isn't them trying to tear you down. That is them applauding you. They are applauding you for being better than them. They are giving you a standing ovation. When those people, and I just told you the story about the group chat, when they teamed up on me, it was like 3 or 4 of them, a few of them like joined in and then left because they had other things to do. When that happened to me that one time, that wasn't a group of people harassing me. That was a fucking standing ovation because I had 4 or 5 people who called themselves my friends in a group chat, all harassing me, all in this category here. Imagine 5 arrows going from the crab section into the new to the grind section. 5 arrows going across that line of people applauding me because I was better than them. That is literally what they were doing. Because they couldn't handle the fact that I was better than them, that I was going up, I was working out, I was learning. They would see me like just doing things like that just asserted the fact that I was better than them. That sounds arrogant, but I'm just being honest. Like, I would read books, I would know things, I was making money from this, and they just didn't like that. When those arrows crossed the line, when they were being rude to me, that was a fucking round of applause, because when a negative person, remember double negative, when a negative person treats you like shit, that is a positive. You need to attach some dopamine to these insults. You need to attach some dopamine to these people. You probably fear these people. You have a negative cognizant reaction to when they say rude things to you. You need to rewire that. That is old school evolutionary pack mentality. When someone in the tribe says something mean to you, you go, oh, you get a cortisol spike and it offends you because you might get kicked out of the tribe. Imagine back in caveman times, if people you were with in a tribe didn't like you, that increased the odds of you getting kicked out and you would probably die because you'd be without a tribe. That doesn't apply these days anymore, right? That's not relevant at all these days. When somebody in your tribe in the modern day, in your friend group, is being a crab, or a whole group of them are being crabs to you, that doesn't mean you're going to die or anything like what would have happened, 300,000 years ago or whatever. These people are intimidated by you because you're in the productive section. So I want you to remember that. You need to consciously attach dopamine to it. When someone is rude to you from now on, I'm repeating this a lot because it's so essential that you understand it. But from now on, whenever someone is rude to you, whenever someone is a crab, I want you to remember law 3, the dopamine law. That isn't them being rude to you. That's a fucking round of applause because they are applauding you for being better. They just don't realize it. That's so important that you understand. Remember, their goal is to control you. They want you, when they say rude things to you, they don't want you to be better. They want you to be worse. They want you to be a worse person so the weakness goes away for them. As soon as you're a worse person and maybe you slip into the destructive category back with them, remember, they're not rude to each other. They want you back in that category even though they don't realize it, so that you stop making them feel bad. That's their goal. Do not give in to their goal. Do not feel bad and move into the destructive category because they're saying these things to you. You need to stay in your category, and in fact, you need to piss them off by going even further up. You need to piss them off by going up into this category here. So, once you accept this is the truth, which it absolutely is, and I really hope I'm making so much sense to you right now. Once you accept that as the truth, and you can maintain your self-esteem divorced from what they say, then you're truly free. There will come a time, it wasn't really like a slow thing for me, like I kind of put some things together over time, but there was just one day where I just understood that, and I think that's when I started thinking about these things in this video, even though I hadn't made any content on it yet. I just, finger click, I understood exactly why they were doing it, and I just felt free. I was no longer tied down by what they say because I just didn't give a fuck anymore. So, sorry for swearing, but I'm passionate about this. So now that we understand why these people behave this way, and that their goal is to control you, their goal is to put you back in this category with them, because whenever you're in this category, you're activating their weaknesses. That's their goal, right? So how do we stay a productive person? Because, okay, you understand the first point. You understand the point is to not give in to any of their bullshit. But how do you actually stay a productive person and move upwards, up in self-esteem, so that you can become in that, high achiever category? So it can be a difficult thing to do. I fully admit that. Like, it is hard. Staying on self-improvement is difficult when your friend's a crab. Even with everything we've talked about in this video in mind, it's difficult. And the reason it's difficult is because you are the product of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If you spend time with, if you have 5 friends, say, and all of them are crabs, even if you have law 1, where you understand that they're a little string, you have a law 2, where you understand that they're in proximity to you being a good person, and that makes them uncomfortable, and you understand law 3, which is you try and attach dopamine, you like the fact that they're being rude to you. What will actually happen is, even though you understand those things, which is good, because you hang around those 5 people the most, they are still going to rub off on you and make you a worse person. You're the product of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So here are the questions I want you to ask yourself. If someone said you were similar to a friend, would you be offended? Pick any friend. If anyone said this to you, that you're similar to this person, would you be offended? Would you take it as a compliment because you like that person, etc.? What I realized when I heard this question for the first time was that in high school, I went back to high school and I thought about my friend group. I didn't have, and I'm not exaggerating this, I don't really care if any of my friends watch this video and see this, but I didn't have one single friend that I actually would have been complimented by if somebody said I was more like them. I didn't have a single friend where if someone said, you're like this person, I'd actually feel good. I'd be offended every time because I didn't want to be like any of them. Think that through. Like, do you have any actual friends where if someone said you're like this person, you'd be like, oh, sweet. Like, you'd be happy to be more like them. Because if you don't, like most people and like me, that's terrible. That means most of your friends you actually don't like, you don't respect, and you don't want to be like them. So that's the quality of the people you're hanging out with. Second question, does their happiness, I spelled their wrong, I don't give a fuck. Does their happiness correlate to your success? In other words, as you get more successful, as you could say as you move up in this quadrant, do they get happier for you or do they get less happy for you? The short answer, if they're a crab, is that they're always going to get less happy to you. So that one's pretty straightforward. If your friends would not be more happy for you the more successful you got, if you won the lottery, if you won a huge martial arts competition, if you got 1 million subscribers on YouTube or anything like that, would they be happy for you? A lot of them wouldn't, and I know mine wouldn't. Mine weren't happy for me, past tense. I know for a fact that they weren't. And the third question is, what direction are they going in? Where are they going? That's pretty straightforward. If you're in the destructive section, whether you're at the very bottom or the very top, like, Conor McGregor we talked about before, if you're in this section, you're going down. If you're in this section, you're going up. It doesn't really matter how high or low you are already. If you're productive, you're going up. If you're destructive, you're going down. If you have any productive friends, but they're like lowest of the low self-esteem, that is actually okay. If they're low self-esteem, but they're productive, even if you're higher self-esteem, that's actually fine because they're going up. That's okay. And productive people they're not destructive to you or to themselves. They're actually trying to become better people. So that's okay. It's not the low self-esteem thing so much as the coping mechanism, whether or not they're productive or destructive. So just bear that in mind. What direction are your friends going in? Are any of them going up? I know for me, it's kind of the same answer as question 1, which is none of them are going up. Even if they, after we graduated, they got a job. Some of them got a job. I know one guy, I think it was this, I'll show you at the start of the video. I don't care. Pretty sure that guy started doing MDMA. No idea what that guy's doing. Don't know. This is what I'm doing. I'm training. I'm fucking huge. I was curling 35 kilos on the Preacher Curl machine. I think that's like almost 80 pounds, like curling that for like reps on the Preacher Curl machine. I could probably go heavier as well. So that's what I'm doing. But, where were we? Fuck's sake. Sorry. I've sworn too much in this video. But yeah, these are very important questions to ask yourself. If your friends aren't going up, if they're not becoming better people, why are they even your friends? Like, it's just kind of silly. So what you need to do to become a more productive person, to stay a productive person, is do all the things we've already talked about so far and cut out the worst offenders. So I want you to think about, you can actually draw this quadrant if you want. You don't have to do all the writing on the squares. You can just like draw a box. And I want you to put your friends where you think they are. And don't just put them in the quadrant. I want you to actually put them inside the quadrant in the exact spot you think they are. So the guys that are in this photo, right, at the start, these two specifically, if I was to do this exercise and put them in the quadrant, I wouldn't just put them in this quadrant, I'd put them in this corner because they were the lowest self-esteem and they were the most destructive. Other people, like for example, what is going on? For example, this guy, before he redeemed himself, he wasn't as bad. So I'd put him in this quadrant still, but he'd probably be about here in the middle. He'd be a bit higher self-esteem and he'd be a bit less destructive. He wouldn't be all the way down in here. This is like an arrow, more destructive, more productive, lower self-esteem, higher self-esteem. I want you to put your friends in here. And I think this quadrant is a very, very good way of quantifying your friend group, because the more people that are down here versus up here, the more people that are down here, that means your friend group is lower quality and more shit. For most people, if you were to put dots for your friends, like obviously I want you to write their names, but if you were to just put dots, all of the dots would be concentrated like in this section here, and probably excuse me, probably specifically in this corner, like that's where all the dots would be. For me, I know I've culled those people in that corner, and now it's more dispersed. There's more people in this section and this section, that kind of thing. Not really anyone in this section that's had a fall from grace, but yeah, mostly in these two here. So that's what I've done. So what you need to understand, do that exercise first, draw the quadrant and write like at least 10 to 20 people, depending on how many people you hang out with. Just write down a bunch of different people and put them in the exact spot that they need to be in that quadrant. You can even take a photo and send it to me on Instagram if you want, and we can have a chat about it. Obviously, you know, I'm safe to talk to. You can ask me for help and I'll give you a hand. But yeah, write those people down, and I want you to work on cutting out the worst offenders. So if you pick 3 or 4 people that are the worst offenders, never hang out with them again outside of school, under no circumstances. Even if it's a party, if it's a big party and they're there, you can still go and not talk to them. If it's a small party, just don't go. If it's I don't really think 10 people is considered a party, but let's just pretend it is. If there was a party of 10 people, 10 people hanging out, and there's 2 or 3 guys there that you've said you're never going to hang out with again, don't go. If it's 20 to 30, you can still go, but just don't talk to them. You know what I'm saying? Don't hang out with them one-on-one or in a small group. And if you're in a big group, just don't go near them, if that makes sense. So yeah, cut out those people, and over time, what you want to do is you want to replace them with better people. Now, that probably made a few people uncomfortable when I said that, because replacing and making new friends is actually something a lot of people struggle with. So what you need to start doing is network as much as possible. So this is what I want you to understand. You can't have more friends than people you talk to, right? Think that through for a second. Is it possible for someone to have more friends than the total amount of people they talk to? No. So the amount of friends you're going to make is a number that is smaller than the total amount of people you're going to talk to on a daily basis. So ask yourself, how many new people do you actually talk to and meet? It's probably very small. For most people, they don't really meet any new people at all. By the way, that same logic applies to like dating people, for example. You can't date more people or have more, opportunities to have a girlfriend or a boyfriend than the total amount of people you're speaking to. If you're not speaking to any more people, if you're speaking to a very small amount of people, the number of people you could potentially be in a relationship is less than that. It just makes perfect sense. So as far as friends go, what you need to start doing is networking as much as possible. So what you're going to do from now on is you're going to say hello to every single person that you walk past, even if it's an old person. Just say hello to everyone. It's such a good skill. I'll link a video on my main channel I made recently in the description about the top 5 habits that make you a better person, and I'd recommend you check that out as well. So speak to every single person you walk past. Speak to more people in the gym, speak to more people in the line at the checkout, and just talk to people. You don't have to be autistic and try and get everyone's phone number and meet up for stuff, but just speak to more people. And what you'll actually find, if you take my advice, is you'll start accidentally making more friends, and your social skills will level up. More people want to hang out with you. And then when somebody walks into, say it's at the gym, for example, when somebody walks in who's maybe a little bit like the old version of you, where they're a bit awkward and quiet, and they see you talking to a bunch of people, all of a sudden you're the popular guy, you're the person in this quadrant. Maybe they've even watched this video and they're down here and they see you as the guy that's up here. Maybe even if you're not even that high, you could be around here, but they see you as the guy that's up here because that was their first impression, and then boom, you've just made a lifelong friend. So that's what I'd recommend you do. I might make a follow-up video where I talk about social skills and how to actually network with better people, but what you need to do to stay a productive person, bottom line, in case you didn't listen to anything, is ask yourself these questions. Put all of your friends on this quadrant to see where they are at the moment. Get rid of the worst offenders and never hang out with them again. Start meeting new people and that kind of thing, like networking with people, like I just said. And I'd recommend you join more clubs where people hang out that are like you. So you can do a martial art, you can join a gym club, you can join multiple gyms. You can literally do a taster session at every gym in the area if you want, and just fuck around and waste their time. But you can suss out which gyms are better and that kind of thing. And yeah, just that sort of thing. Do all the things I just said, and you'll become a more productive person. And the most important thing to do is to remember the laws. It's to remember that you're getting a standing ovation every single time your friends treat you like shit, and it's to not let them drag you back into this category. You must not go back into this category. You must stay in this one, and you must rise and become a better person. But guys, that is the video. If you stayed around to the end, I'm incredibly proud of you, and I hope you enjoyed. We covered everything here. If you have any questions, comment below, or you can email me, or you can message me on Instagram. The Instagram thing is probably the best thing to do because I'm most likely to see it. I've got my ebook linked in the description. If you're relate to anything in this video, I'd 100% recommend you I'd 100% recommend you check it out. It's got everything you could possibly need to live a better life, to become a better person. I give a lot of my opinions in that book that I don't give on YouTube about society and our generation and the weaknesses and who is the enemy truly. And I think it's really interesting to see. But that is the video. Hit the subscribe button, check out my other channel, and don't let them win. Have a good one, guys.